Okay, so one of my comments mentioned the Patrician TV Oblivion analysis and told me that I should talk about his take on efficient leveling. And I'd never heard of it, so I came and looked and I saw a 12-hour long video. Um, so clearly this guy's some kind of legend. I mean, 5 million views on a 12-hour long video. This guy's incredible. I cannot compete with his knowledge on each of these subjects. Not even close. However, I'm going to use his own words and his own description of Morrowind and apply that to Oblivion to kind of trash talk him. So take everything I say here with a grain of salt. I'm going to be trashing this guy, but obviously this guy's got a lot of knowledge about these subjects. So listen for a second.
Overwhelmed and mentally overcomplicate something that can really be as basic as point and click to do damage. The problem boils down to the fact that people will pick a basic class like Knight, then take that dagger in the census office, go off to fight a mud crab, miss, and start immediately complaining that they should have hit the crab because the models collided. Hit chance is a part of Morrowind. Playing Morrowind without hit chance is not playing Morrowind. Weapons.
So he clearly understands the concept that if you are playing a video game, you should know the basics of the video game. At bare minimum, you should be interacting with the game systems. And if you're not doing that, you're going to have a bad time. And that isn't necessarily bad game design. Now, maybe the game could have communicated it better, which I would agree both with Morrowind and Oblivion. The system should be communicated better. That's just reality. That's why these videos exist that talk about these things, because people want to know more about these games because they are great games that don't communicate things very well. Now, that's his opinion on people struggling with Morrowind. Then we go to Oblivion. And before I talk about his opinions on efficient leveling, which I won't do in this video, maybe in a future one, but I don't want a 12-hour long video. In his retrospective here, this 12-hour video, he's playing this character here. He made a Breton. He picked the Atronach birth sign. And I really want to focus on this for a couple minutes because this is the worst character build I have ever seen. And beyond that, the way he plays it makes it even worse. Even worse than the worst build is the way he plays it. So I don't really respect anything he has to say about the balance, the difficulty, or the mechanical systems in the game like combat or magic. He might have great opinions on the quests, on lore, and his takedowns of the arena, or how the arena raiment takes multiple equipment slots or weighs too much. There's a lot of valid and great points he brings up to critique Oblivion, and I agree with a huge portion of it. But when he's talking about power attacks, he doesn't know what he's talking about. When he's talking about what skills you should pick, or even he says absorb health is really useful and good, and that's just not correct. He compares the magic systems between Oblivion and Morrowind, and he acts like they're so vastly different because Oblivion requires you to have like 25 skill to cast apprentice level spells. But if you try to cast good spells in Morrowind, you have like a 10% chance to succeed until you get more skill. So Morrowind's just the same system but more gradual. It's not that different. Like they play very similar, in my opinion, other than the regen during combat. I don't want to talk too much about that, but basically his opinions are based on insanity. So let's talk about this build. Breton and Atronach are the tankiest race and the tankiest birth sign. He's not going to die very easily, and in this playthrough, he is wearing this heavy armor. So that is his only major skill that he uses, and that's part of the build. So he has very good physical defense and incredibly powerful magical defense. He's a very tanky character. Now, that means he's not using mysticism, alteration, speechcraft, marksman, light armor, or blunt. And you might think, okay, well, none of those are really great skills, except maybe alteration for feather. What he is doing is he's running around using hand-to-hand, which is like an RP skill, and it's not a major skill. So I did a standard class tier list where I ranked monk very low because hand-to-hand is their only offensive major skill, and it's a joke how bad that is. You can make a build with destruction and damage fatigue with hand-to-hand. I think it's a big pain and terrible. Like, it's kind of funny that you knock everybody down, so you might enjoy it. I don't like it. He didn't even pick destruction. So to level destruction, it would take forever. And this build and the way he's playing it with hand to hand clearly will lead you into a situation where yes, you might not die immediately to everything thanks to your heavy armor, the fact that he's power leveling endurance, and the Atronach Birth Sign and the Breton Race, but he's never going to be able to kill things without lowering the difficulty. Or I don't really know what else he would do, to be honest, because I haven't watched this whole 12-hour video, but that just sounds like a complete nightmare. And his reasoning for this is he's only using heavy armor, so he knows after 10 skill ups he's getting +5 to endurance because he's got +10 to heavy armor if he gains a level. I couldn't imagine he would ever play Morrowind this way, where he would pick the 9 worst major and minor skills and then one good major that he'd actually use. It just doesn't. That's not how you play this game. You know, he can play it this way. You can do whatever you want. It's your game, but this is not a good strategy. This is not a smart strategy. This is a terrible, terrible, weak, and bad way to play the game. You know, I used to play Diablo 2, and this would be like a barbarian putting all 20 points into Axe Mastery and then 20 points into Bash and nothing else, and being level 40 and not having any resistances and putting all their attributes into Strength and wondering why they're dying and they can't kill anything. Like, and never using a rune word. Like, you have to interact with the game systems a little bit more than this. This is actually the worst I've ever seen. You know, and even to start, let's go to, I wrote down the time, 32. Let's listen to this here.
Part of your class, and specialization are the skills that fall under the part of the RPG trifecta you chose. So, for example, for me to raise my blade skill, which is not in my character specialization, or his major skills to 100,
which it could have been, he just chose it not to be,
I would have to land 20,435 blows. Now, if I lower the difficulty to the bottom, almost every enemy in the game dies in 1 or 2 hits, delaying my progression that much more. I spent the first hour of the game running around Lake Rumari, picking Nernrit and punching mud crabs to train my hand-to-hand at high difficulty.
So I want you to, that last part. I spent the first hour running around picking Nernroot and punching mud crabs. He spent an hour just training his character, just to get him up to a point where he wouldn't be completely worthless. He plays an incredibly boring way and an incredibly inefficient and bad way, and then complains about the mechanics, the mechanical systems and balance in the game. You know, your opinion on this with this build isn't valid. Like, you don't get to play this garbage of a class, this garbage of a build, and then even worse, it's not like he's using Blunt, which is one of his major skills, and then play it that way and say you're playing Oblivion. Just like if you're not playing with hit chance, you're not playing Morrowind. If you're not using your major skills, you're not playing Oblivion. I don't know what this is. I don't know what game he is playing here, but this is just some goofy RP something. I don't know. All of his other opinions, you know, he talks about how Manny Marco's like a terrible boss fight. I agree. You know, a lot of it I'm sure I agree with. Some of it I don't. Like he talked up Maglir. I think Maglir's a piece of crap. He tries to kill you because you killed a faction of like druggies who go on drug-induced rampages. We don't need to talk about specific factions. Honestly, on most of that, I agree with him, at least from what I've seen. I have not watched all 12 hours. But this build is the worst build ever. And if that is the build that you use to base this review on or this retrospective on, it just doesn't reflect enough player experience. So I just wanted to rant about that for a little bit. I'll do more on Patrician TV in this video in the future, but I want to get back to playing Oblivion and making videos on my own build. So thanks for watching.